Yo, what is up guys, Ghost here, and today I want to talk about the future of Battlefield. So EA recently held their quarterly earnings call, which shed a little light on how they see the Battlefield franchise going forward, how they wish to evolve it, and when we can expect a realistic release date or even an announcement for the next game. And with that in mind, what's going to happen to Battlefield 2042 going forward? Are we getting a second year of content? Is Season 5 the end? What is the deal here? Before we begin though, if you do enjoy the content, don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on any future videos. We are working our way up to 45k subs, so any support you guys can give me is always appreciated. Thank you very much for that. So as I said at the start of the video, we got some pretty interesting tidbits into the inner workings of EA the other day. These earning calls are held every quarter, and it's usually Andrew Wilson, the CEO of EA, as well as the CFO and COO on the line with a bunch of analysts from various investment companies. These companies obviously hold large amounts of shares in the EA company, and so these analysts want to know about early predictions for how the coming year for EA is looking, and they always get to ask a few questions about that, some of which can give us a little clue about the future. One such question was all about the larger titles that EA have, such as Apex, FIFA, The Sims, and how players seem to be coalescing around those bigger titles and less so towards the smaller, single player games that kind of release, people play them, and then they're old news. They don't stick around for many years at a time. And Andrew says here, as we think about building The Sims for the future and Battlefield and Apex and Skate and other properties in our portfolio, we really think about that in the context of building games as a platform or content as a platform to drive these long-term businesses across play, watch, create, and connect. We think this will be longer lasting than the present kind of macroeconomic climate, and certainly that's where we're investing in meaningful parts of our time, money, and resources over the coming years. However, the most interesting question for me is actually this one. Given the higher level of risks around these larger blockbuster franchises, do you think you will allow development teams in, say, the non-sports games, longer lead times to make sure the quality is high and the risk to franchise damage is minimal? And when this guy says risk to franchise damage, I think we all know exactly what franchise he's referring to. So Andrew says it's really about how do we build this as a platform that drives long-term live service business over a 10+ year period. And what we're seeing out of FIFA and what we're seeing out of Apex and what we're seeing out of The Sims, which launched again in 2014, is meaningful return over a decades-long life cycle. And as we set ourselves up for the future, that's going to be a meaningful part of how we invest in our company, how we invest in the content and service that we provide to players, and how we support our development teams to do that. So what he says there about looking at these franchises as long-term investments and all that we've heard about the Battlefield universe, that certainly sounds like we can expect the new Battlefield title to be more akin to something like Apex, where instead of releasing a new title every 2 or 3 years, they'll stick with the same game, continue support, and bring out new content. A lot of popular games are doing that. If you look at Warzone, I mean, sure, they released Warzone 2, but it's pretty much just a continuation of the original Warzone. Same thing goes for Overwatch 2, but Battlefield is like a completely new game every time, so it sounds like they're going to embrace what a lot of other developers are doing. Now that could be really good or really bad for us. If they make one hell of a Battlefield game, then I'd love to spend years playing it. If on the other hand it's a disaster like Battlefield 2042 was, well, then, maybe not so great. Vince Zampella of Respawn fame and the creator of Infinity Ward, who of course propelled Call of Duty into stardom, is of course heading up the various Battlefield teams now. So under his leadership we've got DICE Stockholm working on the next main Battlefield title, the newly formed Ridgeline Studios team, headed up by Marcus Leto, famous for creating the Master Chief from Halo, and they're working on the single-player campaign. And then finally we've got Ripple Effect Studios, previously DICE LA, who created the Portal mode in 2042. They are working on their own standalone Battlefield game. Now there was actually a recent interview with Vince Zampella posted on Axios.com, and he said, "It's best not to think of Battlefield simply as a Call of Duty competitor. It has a specialness around the squad play, and those only in Battlefield moments where you can kind of see something come together where it just blows your mind." I can't really say too much, just because we're not really talking about it yet, but there's a lot more that we can do there. Now, moving back to the earnings call, this final question that I want to mention here really relates directly to Battlefield. So this one is from a guy named Doug, and he asks, just wondered if you could give an update on how the various projects that are associated with the Battlefield IP are progressing, and maybe how that plays into some of the things you said earlier about giving your big franchises time to gestate so that they're great when they come out. And Andrew says, yes, I mean, we don't have any date announcements or future announcements, if that's the question, certainly this time. What I'd say is, I think we've put together an extraordinary creative leadership team. I know we've got the team gathering actually this week in Sweden. I had to call this morning with some of the leadership, and they're very bullish on how that's progressing. I think we've got extraordinary confidence in that team and extraordinary confidence in the progress we're making against the future of that franchise. And I come back to that we're not just building a game, we're building a platform, content as a platform to drive live services over the decades to come. And so as we continue to move through this process and it becomes appropriate, we'll share more about the future of Battlefield, but it is firmly implanted in that first pillar of our strategy, building games and experiences that attract and entertain massive online communities across platforms, across business models, across geographies. And we think that Battlefield is going to be a meaningful part of our future, and we'll share more as time progresses. So yeah, again, whatever they're doing with Battlefield, it sounds like it's going to be something big. However, it won't be coming anytime soon. EA also provided us with this title slate showing their current existing live services and games releasing this year, and as you'll notice, Battlefield is nowhere to be seen. It's also pretty unlikely that we'll see a release next year, I think. If whatever they're cooking up is as big as we think it's going to be, we're almost certainly looking at a 2025 release. However, there is also another Battlefield title in the works at Ripple Effect that could act as a stopgap in the meantime, and that one could be releasing next year, but even so, we'll most likely only hear something on that about this time next year, as Battlefield games usually release around the month of October. So with no Battlefield game coming anytime soon, it certainly begs the question, are DICE and EA going to continue to support Battlefield 2042 for another year? And will we be getting more content? I put this very question to you guys the other day, so thank you to everybody who voted, and these were the results. So after 3,900 votes at the time of recording of this video, we've got 63% of you think yes, we'll get more content, and 37% who think nope, this is the end. Well, I really admire your positivity, guys, and I do sincerely hope that is the case, but at the moment I certainly have my doubts. If DICE do have more seasons under their belt, it makes sense for them to announce them now so that players know their time is being well spent and that they can invest themselves into the game. It will help player numbers and it will drive more people to purchase the game. However, we were only promised 4 seasons to begin with, but when we learnt that Season 5 was planned, that was actually way before Season 4 released. In fact, we didn't even have any Season 4 details, and they'd already confirmed to us that a Season 5 was in the works. Right now, Season 5 is only a few short weeks from release and even shorter from a reveal announcement, and if DICE had more content planned for the game, I would have thought we'd have heard something by now. On the other hand, if they are planning to end support, or at least big seasonal content drops after Season 5, then they're probably making the right call. There's no point in announcing that to the public prematurely because it'll simply result in, more players leaving the game or not bothering to purchase it in the first place. I think the next few weeks are going to be very telling. I'm expecting a massive bombshell of an announcement with Season 5, not only documenting the new features available there, but also ongoing support for the game, more maps, more weapons, more features, and all of that. They could play it that way with a big announcement, but not to be a party pooper, but if all we hear about is Season 5, then it might be time to start worrying. And in that case, the Battlefield fanbase may be in for another very long wait, just like we had when Battlefield 5 was cancelled. However, I am going to keep my fingers crossed though, as I'm sure you are, and let's hope for the best, eh? But speaking of new features, if you missed this video about the new upcoming squad management system, go and check that one out. Thanks for spending some time with me today, as always guys. Like the video if you liked it, and I'll see you in the next one.